This is G. Montrastelli, and welcome to the Tapping Q&A podcast recorded live today from Williamsburg in Brooklyn. This is episode 528, originally aired April 13th, 2022. Hi everyone, I hope this finds you well wherever you are and whatever time of day you're getting a chance to listen to this. Thanks for spending a little time with me today. Today we are going to talk about 5 things that you can do to start off a tapping session that will set you up for success. Before we do that, 2 quick announcements. Number 1, we have a free 10-part guide on how you can use tapping to eliminate self-sabotage. All you need to do is go to tappingqa.com, click on that big blue button, enter your email address, and over the course of the next 10 days, every single day, I'm going to send you one small bite-sized tool that's really easy to use to make it easier for you to take action. And then at the end of 10 days, you can choose the 1 or 2 tools that work the best for you, use them over and over again. Secondly, I'd like to send a big thank you to all of the supporters of the Tapping Q&A podcast. Because of their support, you continue to get this amazing high-quality content absolutely free. If you would like to support the Tapping Q&A podcast and receive some amazing bonuses, all you need to do is go to tappingqa.com/support. And once again, thank you very much to all of the supporters of the podcast. A couple of weeks ago, my friend John D. Whitus hosted the annual Spring Energy event. It was our 10th one. It's an opportunity for like-minded folks to gather. And this year, I gave a presentation on 5 things that you can do to set your tapping session up for success. Now, as I worked through this presentation, this was a presentation that was given at a virtual event, so I was reading off of some slides with some tapping scripts and phrases. I provided copies of all of that if you would like to be able to look at all of the texts that I'm using and go back to them so you can tap along to them when you are setting yourself up for success. All you need to do is go to tappingqa.com/528, which is the number of this episode. That's tappingqa.com/528. If you happen to be listening to this in the website, you'll see the link right above the player. If you go into your show notes on your podcast app, you will see a link to the download so you can actually access it right on your mobile device right now. So without any further ado, here's my presentation on 5 things you can do to set up a session for success. The time that we are going to spend together right now, the next 45 minutes or so, is going to be the single least sexy of the presentations that you are going to hear over the course of 3 days. We're not doing something really, really fun, like tapping into our intuition. We're not doing practical stuff around the way that we run our business. We're not going to be having high-minded conversations like the one we had last night. This is super, 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 super unsexy, and it's super, super practical. What we're going to talk about are the 5 steps to start a session to ensure success. And one of the things that I've always described myself as a practitioner is I've always described myself as a practicalist. And what I mean by that is I am less concerned about what the biggest trauma is, the deepest trauma is, the story that you tell the most. I'm most interested in my own work, and I'm most interested in when I'm working with clients in the thing that is getting in the way of you doing the thing that is next. That I'm always trying to work from a super, super, super practical point of view as I'm doing that sort of stuff. And one of the things that I do with my classes is I have open office hours once a month where I just let my students come in and they can ask me anything they want about anything at all. And we do some tapping and we talk about application and client sessions and stuff like that. And on Thursday, one of my students asked me, she's like, okay, so we learned all of these really, really cool, awesome tools and we have all of this stuff. How do we know what to do? How do we know which tool to reach for? And the thing that I've come to realize in my own work is I have a half a dozen workhorses that I go back to again and again and again. And some of the more provocative, interesting imagination techniques that we use are really, really powerful, but I pull them out much less often, only when I need them to do some really big, heavy lifting. If I'm doing something small, straightforward, I just keep coming back to the same things over and over again. The second thing that I've realized is that the work that we do with our clients or the things that we do when we're tapping with ourselves that we come back to again and again, we come back to them because they work. And oftentimes what happens in a very implicit way, we keep doing the same things over and over and over again. Like a baby isn't taught to suck its thumb. It just finds that if it sucks its thumb, it is self-soothing. So it goes back to it again and again and again. And the baby doesn't go, boy, I'm really distressed right now. What should I do? Well, I have a blanket and I have a little stuffed rabbit and I have my thumb. Ooh, I'm going to choose my thumb today. Instead, what it does is it just reaches for the tool that it knows works very, very simply and directly to solve the problem. And so one of the things that I did over the course of the last 5 or 6 years is I went back and I listened to hundreds of hours of my own client sessions. One, to get better, and two, to recognize the tools that I kept going back to again and again and again. And I wanted to take those things that were implicit and I wanted to turn them into things that were explicit. Because when I make them explicit, one, they're easier to use. Two, I now have an easy step-by-step process. And three, I'm much more likely to remember to use it if I've named it as something that I like to use. So what I'm going to share with you this morning is I'm going to share with you 5 simple things that I regularly do at the beginning of sessions that help me to set up for success. Now, you don't have to do all 5 of them. You don't have to do them in this order, but these are just ideas to drop in there. The slides that I'm going to share with you, I have some concepts, and then I have a bunch of sample tapping phrases. The handout that is on the handout page is every single piece of text that is on these slides. So if you want to go back and refer to them, look at them after the fact, I've given you all the copy. You can use the text word for word. You can change the words. This is just a starting point. With all things, tapping included, the most important question is, how's it working for you? So what I'm doing right now is I'm describing descriptively the work that I do, and I'm describing descriptively why I do that work. This is not prescriptive. Change, transform, make it into your own thing, or go, that's kind of interesting, and move on. Whatever works for you, I just present it in that particular way. So with that being said, let's dive into these 5 ideas. So how we begin a session. Number 1, open to whatever the outcome is. The reason oftentimes we sit down to tap is because we're trying to solve a problem. We're either doing something that is emotional triage. I'm trying to feel better in the moment. I'm trying to clear a limiting belief. I'm trying to heal a trauma in the past. And because that is the case, it's really easy to come into a tapping session with expectation. 15 years ago, I was sitting in a coffee shop in Costa Rica, and a couple of other Americans came in and they sat down next to me. And I was chatting with them and asking them what they were doing. And they went ziplining, and I was going to do that. And I asked them about the ziplining, like, how did it go? And like, oh, it was really awesome. But one of them goes, yeah, but I kind of tweaked my back. Now, this was very, very early on in my experience with tapping. So I was that obnoxious tapping zealot that ran over everybody I came across. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the most amazing thing. Let me show you this most amazing thing. And I'm like, what's the pain in your back? And he's like, it's a 6. And we do a couple of round of tappings. And after I was like, great, what is it now? And he goes, it's a 4. And in my head, I'm like, oh, it didn't work. And him and his 3 friends went, whoa, that's amazing. Because in 90 seconds, we just reduced 33% of his pain. Because I had a very particular outcome of what I expected from that tapping session, I initially was disappointed. Happiness is outcome divided by expectation. The thing that we expect dramatically impacts the emotional response we have to whatever is happening. So I like starting a tapping session where I am opening myself to the possibility that there could be all sorts of outcomes instead of the one fixed outcome is, I want this absolute total relief. And so these are some of the ways that we can set up a session in that particular way. The fact that I have some time to do some tapping is a good thing. I mean, the fact that you have the wherewithal to stop, to do some self-healing work, the fact that you have access to amazing tools, the fact that you have 4 minutes in your life to stop and do something like this is actually a blessing. And so the fact that we get to ask the question, is it possible for me to transform, means that we are really lucky. I mean, the idea of neuroplasticity came about in my lifetime. We used to think once you were that way, you were fixed forever. And the fact that we now recognize that it's possible to change and that I can stop and try and do that, that's a great thing by itself. So even before we create any outcome, the fact that I've stopped, I've paused, I'm thinking, I'm doing a little tapping means I've already won. I love to acknowledge that when I start. I am open to whatever comes during this tapping session. Again, this is for me to give myself permission to set aside my expectations and go, okay, this is what is happening.
I might learn, I might heal, I might transform. Regardless of the outcome, just taking a few moments of my healing and transformation is good for my health and my well-being. I am grateful for this time. Every single time I get a chance to learn, to study, to transform, to sit down, by just recognizing the fact I have that capacity immediately makes things better for me. And one of the things that John and I talk about a lot is this idea of approaching transformation from this place of curiosity. If I have a fixed outcome in mind, that is not curious, that is driven. By taking the step back, it gives me the ability to be curious and to think about what the transformation looks like as I step into it. So number one, open to whatever the outcome is. Number two, set an healing intention. It is always easier for me when moving forward if I have an intention of what I want to do. Back when I lived in Washington, D.C., what feels like a million years ago, from time to time, I would go to one of those big Mills Company outlet malls where there's 350 places. And if I walked into that outlet mall without intention, 3.5 hours later, I would be staggering somewhere around the east parking lot, trying to remember if I parked in Nikki 6 or Donald 7. And I would just have like this light sheen of powdered sugar down my front from some funnel cake that I thought it was a good idea to try and eat while I was walking around the mall. If I walked into the mall where I'm looking for this type of dress shoes and this type of dress pants, no matter how big that mall was, by having that very specific intention, I was able to move in a way that was significantly more precise. Now, it doesn't mean that I only did that. I walked into the container store and I walked into every stationery store. And boy, you better believe I visited the Lego store because I was doing the exploring as well as I was doing that stuff. So it's not that I'm not specifically looking for a particular outcome, but by having intention, it helps me to step into this in a more directed way. So these are some of the things I consider and tap on when I do this. My intention for this process is to explore healing and transformation around the issue. You'll notice here that my intention for the process is to experience healing and transformation around the issue. That's my intention. I'm just setting it up to put there. My intention during this process is to learn to love myself more. If I am in a circumstance where I have a pain level of 7 and I do some tapping, at the end of it, the pain level is a 7 still, and I've loved myself a little bit more and I'm a little gentler with myself, again, even though I'm in discomfort, that is a win in how I experience this stuff. Again, as we go back to that conversation last night about healing and cure and how we show up in those particular moments, giving ourselves permission to engage with this in a slightly different way changes my energy, changes my disposition, changes the way that I sit down to engage with something like that. My intention during this process is to experience only the memories, thoughts, and emotions that are helpful and healthful for me. Valerie talked about that a lot yesterday when we were doing that sense of setting intention, when we are tuning into our intuition, only letting in the information, the guide, the inspiration that is useful and helpful. And for me, healthful isn't a real word, but it works together with helpful. But that is always my intention when I do anything. Is it helpful and is it healthful for me? There are times in which I can get particular information, but it doesn't do me any good because I can't do anything about it. So it's not actually helpful for me to know what's going on. Other times, I'm in a circumstance where I am so exhausted, it's not actually healthy for me to unpack an issue at this particular time. So I'm only wanting to come forward the things that are helpful for the process and are helpful for me in this particular moment. Lots of times, I'm sure you've had the circumstance where you've done a round of tapping, a session of tapping, and after you're like, oh my gosh, this is so great. This issue is done. I'm ready to conquer the world. And 3 days later, that issue has come back. One of the reasons why this is something that can happen to us, at least from my disposition and experience, is I did as much work as I could in that one session that was healthy for me. And even though there was still issue hanging around, I was no longer capable of being able to manage that in a healthy way. And healthful can mean different things. Healthful at the end of the day, where I'm ending a tapping session and then taking a hot shower and climbing into bed, might mean I'd be able to go a lot deeper, where tapping at 8:30 in the morning with an entire day of client sessions after the fact, healthful is a really different thing because I need to be able to do the thing that is next. Just because running 10 miles might be good for me, running 100 is not 10 times better. And so I'm setting the intention to only allow that in, but I'm also setting that intention for my conscious mind so that I'm able to go, okay, this is what I needed to experience today as I step into this, and I take this in a really simple way. So that's number 2. Number 3, a clear statement of outcome. Now, there's 3 different types of outcomes that we can have. There's a lot more than that, but I kind of group them into these 3. And so I'm going to talk about 3 different ways that I approach this. Now, number 1, you will notice I say a clearish statement of an outcome. When most of us were taught the basics of tapping, we were taught be as specific as possible. And what most of us heard was you have to be specific. And those are different things. Sometimes as specific as I can be is this sucks. And that is all the specificity I have. And I'm experiencing such a constellation of emotion. I can't even tell you which of those emotions I'm experiencing in this particular moment. I'm in distress. But as we know, and I have a feeling when Dr. David Feinstein comes on, talks with us later, we're going to be talking about actually why this happens, is that we know that when we tap, the emotions are downregulated. And so as we're tapping and the emotions are downregulated, we're actually gaining clarity in that process. This sucks, this sucks, this sucks because I'm so angry, because I'm so angry, because I'm so angry, because I can't believe he said that. I can't believe he said that in front of my mother, in front of my mother. And with each tap, as the emotion downregulates, it gives us the ability to find some clarity. I often think about it like looking out into the backyard on a misty morning. At the beginning, it's just mist. And as the morning starts to warm up, all of a sudden I can see the outline of a shed and a tree. And then all of a sudden I can see the door and the rusty lock and the bird feeder. Because as the mist burns off, it comes into clarity. And so our outcome can do the exact same thing when we are tapping. So that's why I say clearish. We're being as clear as we can be, knowing that with each successive tap, it is possible for us to gain more clarity about where we're trying to go. So if I'm setting my intention of the outcome, I'm statement and outcome for taking action, this is what it looks like. The action I'm trying to take is, and I state the action. Not taking this action is causing me, or you could change that word to costing me. Because what's happening sometimes when I'm not taking this action, bad things are happening to me. Sometimes when I'm not taking the action, I'm missing out on opportunity. And so I like to be clear about this is the action I'm taking. This is the consequence of not taking that action. Because I'm not taking this action, I am feeling. I love tapping on the emotion about the issue before I tap on the issue. Like I'm not putting myself out there and then I'm beating myself up because I'm hurting my opportunity in my business because I'm not putting myself out there and sharing this thing that I love. I find if I have an emotion about an issue, it's hard for me to get to the root cause of the issue because of this hard candy shell that is the emotion that I'm experiencing about what is going on. So I think it's super, super valuable to name the emotion I'm feeling about this outcome. The action I'm not taking is not taking this action is causing me and costing me because I'm not taking the action I am feeling. I would like to easily and decisively insert action. I would like to take these action, insert time frame. While taking these actions, I would like to feel. And so again, I'm just setting an intention for the action. And the interesting thing is, as you go through these 6 things here, again, clarity is going to start showing up. Like simply answering one of these questions, a limiting belief, an emotion, a memory might go firing off. And you have two options at that point. One is jot it down. I always tap with pencil and paper at hand, so I can then loop around to it after I've set the table. Or two, I recognize this is a big enough thing I can go after it myself right now. So these are, while I'm doing all of this stuff, I'm tapping all the things that we've gone through before. We're tapping the entire time. And this is a side note, and this is a mistake that I make all of the time. Oftentimes as practitioners, what we do is we go, great, describe your problem to me. Great, how does that make you feel? Great, what's going on? Awesome. Take a nice big deep breath, tap on the side of your hand. Well, while they're describing what is going on, they're tuning into the issue. And so while describing the issue, we can be tapping before we tap on the issue, because while they're describing it, we find clarity while doing this. Now, some people, when they're reporting at the beginning, it's hard for them to do that, like because it feels cumbersome. So typically when I'm doing the interview or intake part as we're starting a process, I just have someone tap on the collarbone or tap on the side of the hand and just stay at that one point because it's not super complicated. But again, as we're going through this, we're tapping the whole time, unpacking, clearing, making it easier for what's going on. So those are the 6 phrases that I like to tap on if my outcome from a tapping session is to take a new action. If my outcome is to clear a past memory, the way I set a clearish intention looks like this. I would like to no longer be impacted, influenced, or controlled by this memory of. And again, we don't need to get into super details. We can just give it a title. We can give it a container. We can do whatever that piece is. But I like the idea here of creating multiple dimensions of thinking about how we are touched by a memory. Impact, influenced, controlled. Now, like, we could just use impact, and it captures all of those things. But language is such an imperfect way to communicate. Years and years ago, a friend of mine wrote a book for teenagers called Real Love in a Pizza Love World. Because I love my camera, I love pizza, I love my mom. Like all of those things mean different things when we say them. And all communication is judged in the response. It's not what's said, it's what's understood. And so I really love using synonyms when I'm talking about the same thing so that I can find the word that works the best for me in that moment or works the best for my client as we're working through that thing. You know, yesterday in a couple of tapping demonstrations, practitioners did a great job and just said, great, change the words to the words that meet you. But if I'm introducing someone to something, I like having lots of options. So impact, influenced, or controlled by this memory. And please do not comment after the fact in the evaluation that I forgot an Oxford comma on that bullet point. I would like to remember only the details about, insert name of this memory, that are helpful and healthy for me. Now, I do this part for a very particular reason. The subconscious mind has a negativity bias, meaning that it wants to remember everything bad so it can avoid it in the future. That's one of the reasons why you will find clients or yourself will have a really hard time clearing an issue because you don't know the lesson from the past moment yet. And so the subconscious mind is going, there is a lesson that needs to be learned from this particular experience. And sometimes the lesson is you don't need to be wandering around the streets of Valencia at 2:30 in the morning, not being able to speak the language without a hotel reservation. Like sometimes there's not something super deep for us to do other than to avoid it. Other times there's no useful lesson because more than likely, I am never going to be a 5-year-old without agency with adults controlling me. Like it is unlikely I'm going to be in that circumstance ever again. This world is wacky. Who knows what's going to happen next? But that is the assumption that I'm working under. Therefore, I don't actually have to remember the details of some of the experiences when I'm 5 in order to be a happy, healthy, functioning adult in this particular moment. And so I would like to remember only the details about insert name of memory that are helpful and healthy for me. And so what I'm doing is I'm giving my subconscious mind permission to wall off or let go of the details that don't serve me in any particular way. You know, like I do not remember the address of the house that I lived in when I was 5 years old on Navarre Road. I have no idea what that house number is. And that serves me no purpose at all. And I will never need that piece of information ever again. So it doesn't matter that I don't remember that thing and I lose no sleep over that. The same is true with the memories that we're trying to clear as we're tapping along with this sort of stuff. So those are the two statements of clearish outcome I like to use when clearing a memory. When we are clearing a strong emotion in the moment, so we're doing that emotional first stage, that triage stuff. Now, oftentimes when I'm feeling super, super emotional in the moment, I am just tapping without words and I'm just tuning into what is there. But if I'm going to do something a little more formal about emotion I'm feeling in this moment, it looks like this. I would like to stop feeling this emotion, which is causing me to whatever the negative outcome is. And it could be emotions. There could be a whole laundry list of them in there. But I find it really useful not only to name the emotion, but what the emotion is causing me. Because for me, when I start describing what is going on, clarity happens. I think it's Milton Erickson who said this. All transformation starts by stating what is. And so by stating the facts of where I'm standing, transformation for me looks like this is where I'm standing. This is where I would like to go. This is what I need to do to move from here to there. That's all transformation is. And so in this particular case, not only am I stating this is what I'm feeling, this is what it's causing me. And again, we could insert costing me in this particular place as well. But it gives me the ability to not only go, oh, this anger sucks, but it sucks because I'm getting more specific. That idea of the more specific we are, because oftentimes we don't think of what this anger is causing me unless there's really direct consequences, like I've punched a hole in the wall or something like that. I would now like to feel emotion so that I can positive outcome. Now, sometimes we are in a circumstance, we cannot name the positive emotion that we would like to feel. Like it feels too much to go from angry to euphoric. And so it might be a small step. I would like to feel calm so that I can think clearly. You'll notice in that intention, it's not like feel euphoric so I can clean my entire house. Like I'm not going all the way to the end. I'm going to what is the next logical step up the emotional ladder that is the reasonable place for me to be. Every single time I sit down to tap, my goal is better. That's it. And sometimes going from depressed to angry doesn't actually feel better, except for the fact when I'm depressed, I'm not taking action. When I'm angry, I'm fighting for myself. It feels no good to go from angry to frustrated. But if I'm frustrated, I am much more likely to treat the customer service person on the other line of the phone as I'm trying to get my internet turned back on with a little more humanity because they're not the one who broke my internet. Now, I still can be a real jackass when I am really frustrated, but I am more likely to make good choices when I'm frustrated instead of angry. And so one thing that you might find useful, look online, find an emotional scale chart. There's a whole bunch of them out there and just kind of see, oh yeah, this is kind of how these emotions relate to each other. And I might go, I now would like to feel frustrated. I would now like to feel calm. I would now like to feel focused. I'd now like to feel euphoric. And then I can climb up until I get to the place where I've run out of time because I need to go do the next thing, or I'm far enough along that I can do whatever I need to do. I would like this change or something better. Every single goal statement I have written in the last 10 years, every single intercessory prayer that I have said for the last 10 years has ended with the line, this or something better. I am really good at dreaming. I am really good at finding the big picture. I have people hire me to help them dream for their business. And even with that said, the universe can outdo me with creativity and wonderfulness 5 days a week, twice on Saturday, 3 times on Sunday. Like it is just something that can always outdo me as I navigate the world. And it's really easy, again, to be fixated on a really particular outcome. And we're fixated on a really particular outcome oftentimes we can miss better outcomes that, since we don't know to look for them, we miss them because we're so fixated on a particular outcome. So I would like this change or something better. What I'm doing is I'm opening my intuition, I'm opening my subconscious mind, I'm opening my spidey sense, I'm opening all of those resources that are hidden in the back of my head as a way of giving myself permission to connect and tune in and find something that is there. So these are ways that I can set some intention as I step into this particular thing. Number 4, self-compassion. The year 2000, my work for the year 2000 was to be gentle with myself. That was it. Like, my internal work for an entire calendar year was just to be gentle with myself. And it is such a powerful thing in transformation. The amount of growth and transformation I did in that calendar year was amazing. And I wasn't looking to change all of these things in my life. Every single time I sat down to tap, I spent some time with, how do I kind and gentle with myself? It just is transformative stuff. For me, my goal in this world is to be comfortable inside of my own skin. Because when I'm comfortable inside of my own skin, I understand my competency, I understand my capability, and I judge myself on that particular thing. You can ask me to do something I'm really bad at, and I will say, great, this is my level of competency with that. If you're okay with that, great, let's go do that thing. And I hold myself to that particular standard because I understand what I control and what I don't. I understand what I'm capable of and what I'm not. And that comes from self-compassion, is another word of saying understanding the full context of the experience we are having at this particular moment. When we judge ourselves harshly for the choices we've made in the past, it's because in the past we were making a choice with incomplete information. We're now emotionally judging ourselves with more complete information. Self-compassion is just understanding the context in which we are making choices in. We are always making the best possible choices we can make based on the information we have and the resource state that we are in at that particular moment. Self-compassion makes it easier for us to do that. I give myself permission to be easy and gentle with myself. Now, a couple of words in here in this particular phrase that I want to highlight. First phrase, I give myself permission. I am of an age that there's a joke inside of my family that whenever we needed to work something for school, my mother always threatened to sign the notes Juan Epstein's mother. Because Juan Epstein from the Sweat Hogs, whenever he forged a note of his mother, he just wrote Juan Epstein's mother instead of signing her name. And that's the way that Gabe Kaplan and Welcome Back Kotter always knew that it was a scam. But permission is a really powerful thing. We are constantly working from these absolutes about how the world works, what we're allowed to do and what we're not allowed to do. And so by giving ourselves permission to do something, when you were a 13-year-old walking around the hallways of your middle school and an adult approached you and said, what are you doing in the hallway? And you pulled out that hallway pass. It was like, stick it right there. I can be here. You're not in charge of me. Giving ourselves permission makes it so much easier for us to engage with something. And you'll notice I'm not saying, I am being easy and gentle with myself. I have to be easy and gentle with myself. The goal is to be easy and gentle with myself. I give myself permission to do that. Second phrase, gentle with myself. I have a number of clients that really push back on gentle with myself. Because when they hear, and again, this is completely valid because communication is about what we understand. When they hear gentle with myself, they hear, I'm letting myself off the hook and I'm not taking responsibility. When I am saying I'm being gentle with myself, I'm saying I'm understanding the context and I'm taking responsibility for my choices and the outcome of those choices. Some people feel like they're giving themselves an emotional pass when they say easy and gentle with themselves. And so you might need to find a different word there that works for you in that particular case. But that's what's going on in that phrase. I give myself permission to be easy and gentle with the fact that I'm struggling with this. I'm a tapping practitioner. I tap with people all the time. How dare I have emotional issues? I am this emotionally mature, high emotional IQ individual. How come I am feeling like this? because sometimes I'm a real grumpopotamus. The podcast that I released on Wednesday was about a time a year ago, February, where I basically hit an emotional rock bottom for 3 weeks, where I worked with clients because I had responsibility to work with my clients. And if I wasn't working with clients, I was binge watching crap TV, or I was taking a nap, or I was taking a walk, just listening to crappy podcasts as I watch boats float up and down the East River. It's really easy to beat ourselves up because we're having the human experience of having emotions. And because we are flawed enough to have disproportionate emotional responses and misinformed emotional responses, because we should know what's going on. Whenever I'm teaching my clients about time management and stuff like that, I always have to take a step back and go, okay, just because I'm saying this out loud doesn't mean I execute all of this perfectly. Like right now, you are looking at a very well-framed me with a light here and 2 lights there and a background, and you have no clue what this desk looks like and what this floor looks like right now as I'm trying to do all of the back behind-the-scenes stuff to manage this particular event. But boy, it looks great. And so when I'm talking about my experience and I'm coaching my clients, it's really easy to sound like I am that, like I've already had the little bulb of enlightenment shoot out of the top of my head. And so I'm constantly reminding my clients that, like, just because I'm articulating this clearly doesn't mean I'm executing it successfully moment to moment inside of my own life. And so I give myself permission to be easy and gentle with the fact that I'm struggling with this. And if you want to add something on to the end of that, it's because I am human and I'm having a very human experience. Like, if you need to give yourself a reason why this is the case, that's as good as any. At least in my experience, I've only encountered imperfect humans so far. Limited experience, who knows? New York's a big city. I give myself permission to be easy and gentle with the fact that I'm still struggling with this. How many times have you sat down and gone, oh, I got to tap on this issue again, and it feels like a failure? Well, it just means you haven't gotten as far as you'd like to get yet. And so I'm being easy and gentle with myself, I'm being easy and gentle with the struggle, I'm being easy and gentle with the fact that I'm still having this struggle. And sometimes, like, I can remember this years ago, I was tapping with someone who was tapping with me only because her husband was badgering her so much, she just wanted to shut her husband up. Okay, I'll go tap with Jean. I'll tap with Jean. So she shows up and she is super, super resistant. And it's a friend. So it's not like someone off the street. Like, it's a friend of mine who I know really, really well, and I appreciate what's going on. 15 minutes into that session, she was really disappointed that a single round of tapping didn't clear this major childhood trauma. So in 15 minutes, she went from, this dumb tapping thing I'm just going to do to get my husband off my back, to, the healing process is way too slow. So even if we are 30 seconds into a tapping thing, we can be disappointed by how slow that it's happening and that we're still struggling with it. So I like saying out loud, I give myself permission to be easy and gentle with the fact that I am still struggling with this. I give myself permission to be easy and gentle with the fact I haven't worked on this issue sooner. There's always a sooner, almost always a sooner. And always, why didn't I do that yesterday? Why didn't I do that last week? Why didn't I do this when I was 18? Again, my past 100% has created the place that I'm standing right now. The choices I have made, the choices everyone around me has made, has informed where I'm standing right now. It impacts the choices I can make, but it does not predetermine the choice that I make next. And so it's important to remind myself that I could have worked on this sooner. I didn't. The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is today. And so even though I should have been doing this a long time ago, I'm going to be easy with myself because I haven't worked on this issue sooner. So again, you can see what I'm doing here is I am just setting up over and over again with these 4 simple phrases. It's okay. There's context. It's okay. There's context. How lucky are you to be doing this right now? Now let's step into that particular transformation. Number 5, understanding it is a healing process. This is a healing process, not a healing moment. I actually like doing this at the end of sessions as well, not only at the beginning of sessions, because again, we have a really particular idea when we want transformation, what we think that is supposed to look like. I'm sure you've seen the meme around there. It's like what you think it's going to be. And there's like start and there's end and there's an arrow. And then what it's like. And there's start and there's an end and there's a squiggly line that goes all over the place and crosses over 8 times. And it finally gets there. Like we have no idea that Donald Rumsfeld, in talking about the Gulf War, said that there were the knowns, there were the known unknowns, and there were the unknown unknowns. Like they're blind spots that we know that we have, and they're blind spots that we don't know that we have because they're blind spots. Like I could tell you where the blind spot was on my 72 Buick Skylark 4-door because of that 17-foot monster and the way it was constructed. I knew where little bitty Datsun disappeared. But I also have blind spots in my life that I'm completely unaware of. You know, over the course of the last 10 years, the blind spots around my approach to race and gender as I have navigated the world that we are living in this amazing multicultural city and the graciousness of people sharing their own lives with me. It's like, oh my gosh, that is an amazing blind spot I did not realize I had. And so it's a process. It's not just a moment. I give myself permission to allow the process to unfold in a natural way, AKA not in the way that I want it right now. Now, it might follow that, but again, being easy with the process. I'm giving myself permission to heal without needing to know the reason why I am the way that I am. This goes back to that point we were talking about a few minutes ago about how I don't need to know everything in my past. If I am convinced I need to know why I am the way that I am before I heal, there's some issues I'm never going to heal because some of them do not have an initial sensitizing moment. It's something that has been given to me culturally. Some of them, as the research of Mark Wolin and others have shown, is the trauma is actually epigenetic. That they can demonstrate in multi-generations how trauma shows up in our experience because it's in our genome. And the really cool thing is we can clear those things and we're not stuck with them forever. But if I have a fear of water and I didn't know that my father almost drowned when he's 11 years old, I'm never going to heal my fear of water if I need to know why before I can heal and before I can transform. So I'm giving myself permission not to know. And if you're going to tap on this phrase, I would pay attention to any emotional charge that shows up after you tap on that phrase. I give myself permission to heal without knowing why that I am. Yes, I have to know what's going on. Like if there's a part of you that is resisting this, it's going to speak itself right here, and you might want to take a little detour and go after that. I recognize that when I live in a new way with a new belief, that I'm not thoughtless, careless, and reckless in creating change. The fears that we have think they are keeping us safe. And they are if they're proportionate and they're well-informed. You know, I am sitting here in Brooklyn. It's great that I'm afraid of tigers, but if I never left my apartment because 9.8 miles from here in the Central Park Zoo, there's a tiger and there's another one up in the Bronx Zoo, that's disproportionate. But if I tap on my fear of tigers, I'm not going to be thoughtless, careless, and reckless, meaning I'm now going to go to the Central Park Zoo and climb into the tiger cage and try and get a little cuddle. Like it is possible for us to have transformation that does not turn us into 19-year-olds who are traveling by themselves for the very first time on spring break in Cancun. Like the transformation doesn't turn me into that thoughtless, reckless character. And so I'm saying it out loud, or I'm recognizing that in transforming and healing and releasing my fears, like oftentimes I work with clients who want to share more of themselves in their work, in their family, whatever. And so the things that we tap on is I give myself permission to know I can share more of myself and be safe. And that doesn't mean I'm sharing everything. It doesn't mean I'm sharing with everyone. It doesn't mean I'm sharing it all of the time. I still get to choose when I share, but it's safer for me to share more. And so if I'm afraid that healing is going to turn me into someone who is irresponsibly unsafe, then I'm not going to heal, because the system wants me to be safe. And it's going to be, in the words of my buddy Brad Yates, brilliant in the way that it self-sabotages me to keep me from doing that healing, because the healing is dangerous. So this phrase is about recognizing that I live in a new way with a new belief that I'm not being thoughtless, careless, and reckless. I'm saying I can transform and still be a reasonable person navigating the world in a safe way. I recognize the fact that this is a healing process. It is not an all or nothing process. I'm open to the possibility of total transformation while I recognize it is a process. My buddy Dan Cleary, who I studied pain management with, talks about something called the 10% solution. And when I studied with Dan originally about a decade ago, Dan talked about the fact that people typically didn't make, he's a hypnotist, people typically didn't make it to a hypnotist until they had spent between 5 and 7 years in some sort of traditional care before they were seeking a way to transform the pain that they were experiencing at that point. And they would sit down across from him and they would say, Dan would say, great, tell me what's going on. And they'd explain what's going on in their life. And he'd say, how would it feel if 90 minutes from now, after we did some hypnosis, you'd be pain-free? And they're like, that would be great. And he's like, forget it. It's not going to happen. He goes, now, what I want you to do is I want you to tell me the difference if half of the pain went away. And they would describe their life. Tell me the difference if 25% of the pain went away. And they describe the process. Tell me the difference if 10% of this pain went away. And maybe if it was a back issue, now they could sit down for 2 hours, which means going to a movie or going to dinner with loved ones. He's like, awesome, we can do that. And so again, what he's doing in that particular case is he is reframing the expectation, and he is reframing the way people are thinking about transformation, so they're not tuning it into an all or nothing proposition. Dan was in a circumstance where in the 70s, he was in a motorcycle accident where he lost the use of his right hand and his entire right arm. And the way he described it is every moment of the day, it feels like his arm is being pulled off of his body because of what is going on with the nerves to the spinal cord. And in the 70s, they said, we can do surgery on you, and half the time you will be pain-free and half the time you will be dead. He decided not to flip a coin for his life and recognized that, again, to go back what we were talking about last night, this idea of the difference between a cure and healing, a cure and transformation, a cure and quality of life. For me, I need to consistently remind myself, because I am an overachiever in everything I do, even in my desire for transformation. And so I need for myself, I need to say out loud that this is a process. And I'm open to, last night Tim was talking about the fact, he said, well, stage 4 cancer, maybe it's my limiting beliefs that are holding me back from seeing that as something that is possible. I recognize the fact that I am still super, super limited in what is possible. And I will oftentimes speak to that as well. And in my hesitation here, I might see the fact that I'm thinking about the fact that I'm undermining what is possible here. But it's a healing process, not a healing moment. To dovetail on this, like I said, I like doing this at the beginning, at the end of the session. The way I like to use this at the end of the session is I tap on, this is a healing process that is going to continue to unfold. It's not a healing moment. And as my day continues, there are going to be moments where I consciously recognize healing and I'm going to celebrate them. And then there are going to be moments where the healing is happening in the background where I don't notice it at all, but I appreciate and celebrate that background transformation. And as I sleep tonight, all of this transformation is going to integrate like a software update. So when I wake up in the morning, I will have rebooted with this new software. And it's not something that I know, but it's something that is integrated into who I am. And so at the end, I am setting the intention for the beginning of the rest of my day. The exact same way I'm setting the intention for a tapping session here, I'm giving, because again, even when we recognize relief in a session, it's really easy to feel like, if I just would have found one more core issue, or if we just would have had 5 more minutes, or if I just would have found the right phrase to tap on, we would have gotten, or just the right memory, we would have gotten a little further. Like, my system is a healing machine. And that is a phrase I tap on all of the time. It is consciously, unconsciously, and subconsciously working for my health and well-being every moment of the day. Sometimes it's misinformed. Sometimes it perceives danger inaccurately, but it's motivated by that thing. And so as I keep recognizing and keep tuning back into that, it puts us into a position that helps us to navigate that in a way that is thoughtful and deliberate and helpful. So as I see at my little timer, which you can't see because I'm not showing it, I've shared my 45 minutes. I have 2 quick things to share with you. Number one, please save the date. January 16th and 17th, from 12 noon Eastern on the 16th to 12 noon Eastern on the 17th. John, you were waving at me.
This says July.
It says July because it is July. That's my dyslexic self not being able to read my own notes. It is July. Thank you very much. Sure. Take the stuff that has been looked at by my editor, not the things that are coming out of my mouth, because the dyslexic reading his own words struggles all of the time. Welcome to my life. July 16th and 17th, from 12 noon Eastern to 12 noon Eastern, I am doing a 24-hour live stream where I'm going to be talking with and tapping with 36 practitioners from all over the world. It's going to be absolutely free. We're going to try and raise $25,000 for a bunch of refugee causes, but you can show up absolutely free. You might want to just show up on Sunday about 11:15 to see if I am still alive. It's going to be really awesome. And yeah, we're going to understand that I'm a crazy man. There are 5-minute breaks throughout there so I can use the bathroom and like shovel cereal into my face. But please join me, an amazing cast of characters. Many of them are names that you know. Many of them are names that you do not know. It's going to be an awesome, awesome day. The other thing is, starting tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern, I'm doing a 5-day challenge, Clear 5 Limiting Beliefs in 5 days. Basically, what's going to happen is over the course of 5 days is I am going to teach you one simple tool, and over the course of the day, they're going to build on each other. So not only do we find limiting beliefs, we find hidden limiting beliefs. We have really unique ways to tap for them. We have about 200 people signed up so far. It's going to be a really, really awesome week. Please, please, please tune in and join us. As always, if there's anything I can do for you, you all know how to find me. I have probably the largest digital footprint in the world, which means I'm trackable every moment of my waking life. But that's okay. You can always drop me a note at support@tappingqna.com. John D., thank you once again for giving an opportunity for me to share some of my thoughts on all the things.
I hope you found those bits and bobs useful. Like I said in the presentation, you don't have to do them all. You don't even have to do them in that order. Instead, I just offer them as an opportunity for you to think about some ways of setting yourself up as you step into the healing process. If you have any feedback on that, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What parts of it resonated with you? What parts felt a little bit off? Things that you do. I'm always trying to expand my tool set as well. So I'd love to hear how all of it worked for you. If you know someone in your life who would appreciate a presentation like this, please be our ambassadors. Our marketing budget is your word of mouth. And the most common way someone finds a new resource is from the recommendation of a friend. So they're more likely to find it if you pass it along. And if you send them a note saying, hey, I was thinking of you today, you might like this. Even if they don't play it, the fact you sent them a note saying you're thinking of them is going to make their day a little brighter. I know today, because of some things going on in my part of the world, I received a lot of text messages from people saying, hey, thinking of you today, and it made a real difference. So be that difference to someone else. If you have not done so already, please subscribe to the podcast in podcasting parlance. Subscribe is always free. You can find the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pandora, Spotify, Audible, Amazon Music, basically everywhere you find audio online. All you need to do is search for Tapping Q&A. In some devices, you click subscribe. In some devices, you click follow. But what's most important is you turn on those notifications so that when a new episode comes out, you are notified right away. If you have a question, if you have a comment, if you have a guest you'd like me to interview in the future, because I'm getting ready to do a bunch of interviews, you can always drop me a note at support@tappingqna.com. I am the support team, so if you send that in, I'm going to see those emails. It just makes it easier if they land there so they don't get lost in my inbox. For the Tapping Q&A podcast, is Gene Montrestelli. I hope you have a great day, and I will talk to you real soon. Bye-bye. The Tapping Q&A podcast is copyright Gene Montrestelli Tapping Q&A. All views expressed by guests are those of the guests and not necessarily of Gene Montrestelli and Tapping Q&A.